A newlywed couple vanished in the Arizona desert in 1998, 27 years later. Investigators found this. Daniel and Marissa Hall were the kind of couple people loved to talk about because their happiness felt bright and genuine. They had met in college, discovered they both loved road trips and old maps, and built a connection that grew stronger every year. By the time they finally married in the spring of 1998, everyone around them agreed that the two of them seemed made for each other. They laughed easily, supported each other through stress and uncertainty, and shared big dreams for the life they were just starting. After their small wedding ceremony in New Mexico, they decided to take a long, relaxed road trip across the Southwest. It was their treat to themselves, time to enjoy being newlyweds before they settled into careers and the responsibilities that waited at home. They planned their route carefully, but left enough flexibility to explore interesting places along the way. They carried a cooler filled with snacks, a camera, 2 sleeping bags, and a handwritten list of scenic spots they wanted to see. They especially loved quiet landscapes, so they chose the Arizona desert as the centerpiece of their adventure. They wanted to camp near a canyon, watch the sunset, and take photos they could someday show their children. Both sets of parents wished them well and told them to call whenever they reached a new stop, something Marissa always remembered to do. For the first few days, everything was perfect. They visited small towns, admired painted rock formations, and stopped at little roadside restaurants where the owners were happy to meet travelers. They drove slowly, windows down, letting warm air fill the car while their favorite songs played in the background. Daniel loved taking photos of Marissa, especially when she was laughing or pointing at something interesting. Marissa kept a small travel journal where she wrote short notes about the people they met and the places they saw. The couple felt completely free, living moment to moment without worry. On the morning of their final confirmed sighting, they pulled into a gas station outside the town of Page, Arizona. The gas station was the kind of place travelers often passed through, small, quiet, with a few vending machines and a faded sign that squeaked whenever the wind blew. Daniel filled the tank while Marissa called her mother from a payphone. She said they were planning to camp near a scenic canyon that night and would return home within a few days. Her mother remembered how cheerful and relaxed she sounded, as if nothing could go wrong on a trip filled with sunshine and excitement. Inside the station, the clerk noticed how friendly the couple seemed. Marissa bought 2 cold drinks and asked for directions to a trail she had heard about from another traveler. The clerk told her it was beautiful but reminded her to be careful with the heat and bring plenty of water. Daniel thanked him, and the two walked back to their Jeep, smiling. They didn't seem rushed. They looked like any young couple enjoying the simple pleasure of a shared journey. After they left the gas station, the rest of the day became a mystery. No one knows exactly which road they took or which stop they made next. Investigators later believed they turned toward a remote dirt trail that led to several lookout points. It was a spot known mostly to locals and adventurous hikers, and it wasn't marked clearly on standard maps. The trail could easily be missed or confused with another, but Daniel and Marissa had always been comfortable exploring unfamiliar places. They probably felt confident, trusting their instincts and directions from people they had met along the way. When they didn't return home as planned, their families first assumed they had extended their trip. Losing track of time was something Daniel often did when he was surrounded by nature. But after 2 more days passed with no call, messages, or signs of their return, concern began to grow. It wasn't like Marissa to go silent. She was close to her family and always checked in. Her mother tried calling every motel in the area, hoping the couple had decided to rest somewhere before the long drive home. No one had seen them. The worry intensified quickly. Their parents reached out to friends, hoping someone had heard from the newlyweds, but no one had. Both Daniel's and Marissa's families contacted local authorities, explaining that the couple was responsible and reliable, and that something seemed unusual. Soon, a missing persons report was filed. The report described them as cheerful, organized, and deeply in love, with no reason to disappear voluntarily or stay quiet for so long. It also described the Jeep they were driving, dark green, slightly worn, with a small sticker on the back window that read "Adventure Bound." Authorities began searching the major highways first, thinking perhaps the couple had pulled over somewhere due to car trouble. But the Jeep wasn't found on any of the expected routes. They expanded the search to less traveled roads, parking areas, and scenic turnouts. The desert, however, can feel endless. Wide stretches of land looked similar, paths faded into sand, the heat blurred the distance. Search teams walked long distances, hoping to find footprints, camping gear, or anything the couple may have left behind. But the desert gave no hints. The landscape around that region changed quickly due to wind and shifting sand, and any small clue could be covered in just hours. Days turned into weeks. Their families waited near the search area, hoping for even the smallest update. Volunteers from nearby towns joined the effort, offering their time and support. Helicopters flew overhead, scanning the ground for signs of the Jeep's metallic shine. Everyone involved wanted to believe that Daniel and Marissa had simply lost their way and would soon walk out together, tired but safe. But no signs of them appeared. As the search continued, people began telling stories of possible sightings. One traveler thought he had seen a Jeep similar to theirs near an unmarked trail. Another person said they had heard distant voices while hiking, but could not be sure. Investigators followed every lead, no matter how uncertain. Each clue brought a brief moment of hope before leading nowhere. The desert, with its huge open spaces and hidden valleys, made the search incredibly difficult. Throughout this time, the couple's families held on to the good memories they shared. They remembered how excited the pair had been to start their life together. They pictured the way Daniel looked at Marissa during the wedding and how she laughed when he struggled slightly with his tie. Friends spoke about the couple's kindness, their talent for making others feel welcome, and the way they were always ready for a new adventure. Remembering these moments made the sudden disappearance even harder to understand. The case slowly grew quieter as months passed. Investigators revisited the files often, hoping that a new idea or lead would help them understand what happened. They checked whether reports from the day the couple vanished, spoke to people who traveled through the same area, and studied maps for any overlooked paths. Still, no breakthrough arrived. Although the search efforts changed over time, the families never let the memory of Daniel and Marissa fade. They kept photos of the couple in their homes, wrote letters to them, and shared stories with anyone willing to listen. They believed that someday, somehow, they would find answers. The couple's disappearance remained one of the most puzzling events in the region. It wasn't filled with dramatic scenes or obvious clues, just quiet uncertainty that seemed to stretch endlessly, much like the desert itself. For many people in the community, the story became a gentle reminder of how vast and unpredictable nature can be. The desert was beautiful but demanded respect. Those who lived nearby often spoke about how easily someone could lose their sense of direction among the winding paths and similar-looking landscapes. Even the most experienced explorers sometimes felt overwhelmed by the quiet and stillness that surrounded them. The families of the couple wondered if Daniel and Marissa had simply wandered too far into an unfamiliar area and couldn't find their way back to the main road. It was a thought that brought sadness, but also a bit of comfort, because it meant the couple had likely stayed together the entire time, supporting each other the way they always had. Despite all the searching and hoping, no one could say for sure what had happened to them. Their story remained suspended between memory and mystery. People who heard about the case often imagined the couple's last known day together, driving under the open sky, stopping for cold drinks, talking excitedly about the canyon they planned to visit. That image stayed clear in the minds of those who cared for them. It showed a loved pair, full of joy, completely unaware that the world would soon be searching for them. Year after year, the case was revisited. Investigators reviewed their notes, spoke to the families again, and checked whether new technology could help find clues that had once been hidden. Yet the desert held its silence. Without new information, the disappearance remained one of those rare events that felt too strange to accept but too real to deny. People continued sharing theories, but none could be confirmed. Through all of this, the families held on to hope. Not the loud, confident kind of hope, but a quiet one that lived in their hearts. They believed there would come a day when the truth would be revealed, when the desert, after many years of stillness, would finally give back the answers they had waited for. Even though the search seemed to pause at times, love and memory never did. The couple's story continued to be told, not just because it was mysterious, but because it was full of life, connection, and promise. Every retelling carried the same message. Daniel and Marissa had started their journey with joy, trust, and a deep belief in each other. And even though their path became unclear, the warmth of their story remained. Their disappearance was not described with harsh details or frightening moments. Instead, it was remembered as a gentle reminder of how unpredictable life can be and how precious each shared moment is. The families believed that somewhere in that wide, quiet desert, there was an answer waiting to be found. They held onto that belief for nearly 3 decades, continuing to tell the world about Daniel and Marissa, two young dreamers who set out on a road trip filled with hope, unaware of the long-lasting mystery that would follow. When the first week passed with no sign of Daniel and Marissa, the concern that had started as a quiet worry grew into something much stronger. Their families, already restless from waiting by the phone, began to feel that something had gone seriously wrong. They reminded themselves that the desert was large and confusing, and that these kinds of searches sometimes took time. Still, every day felt long, and every hour without news weighed on them. Local authorities had already checked the main highways and marked paths, but they found nothing useful, so the search widened. Officers, volunteers, and park rangers began exploring dirt roads, small trails, and remote viewpoints that were not always shown on standard maps. Some areas were difficult to reach, requiring four-wheel-drive vehicles and skilled navigation. The desert temperature rose quickly during the day, and the team had to carry plenty of water and supplies. Even with all these challenges, everyone shared the same goal: to bring the newlyweds home safely or at least discover where they had gone. People from nearby towns heard about the situation and joined the search. Some were hikers familiar with the area, and others simply wanted to help because they felt touched by the couple's story. They talked about Daniel and Marissa as if they already knew them, how young they were, how hopeful their future had been, and how heartbreaking it must be for their families to wait without answers. Every volunteer believed that even a small detail could make a difference. They searched the ground for tire tracks, clothing, or anything out of place. But the desert floor changed quickly due to wind, making it hard to know what was recent and what had been there for years. One afternoon, a hiker reported seeing a vehicle that reminded him of the couple's Jeep near an unmarked trail. The description wasn't exact, but investigators followed up immediately. They traveled several miles down rough terrain, hoping the sighting might lead to something. When they reached the spot, they found nothing. No Jeep, no camp, no clues. The hiker later admitted he might have mixed up the color or the location. Still, investigators did not feel discouraged. Even unclear leads provided direction and kept the search moving. Meanwhile, the families stayed close to the search zone. They spoke with officers daily, asking if any new information had surfaced. Though the updates were often the same, no new findings, continuing efforts, they appreciated the steady communication. Family members also visited local shops, diners, motels, and gas stations, sharing photos of the couple and asking if anyone remembered seeing them. A few people thought they might have spotted them, but none of the stories could be confirmed. Marissa's mother remembered her daughter's last phone call clearly. She replayed it in her mind every day, hoping for a detail she had overlooked, a clue about the exact canyon or trail they had planned to explore. But the call had been simple and cheerful, with nothing to hint at which direction they had taken. The memory brought both comfort and sadness. It was comforting because Marissa had sounded happy. It was sad because the moment felt like a door that had closed without warning. As days stretched into weeks, the search team grew familiar with the landscape. They learned how the desert changed from morning to evening, how shadows created illusions, and how long it took to walk from one ridge to another. They also learned how easy it was for someone to wander off a path without realizing it. Many trails looked similar. Some faded into open land, and others ended abruptly near small cliffs or dry riverbeds. A person unfamiliar with the area could easily become confused. Investigators began to believe that natural confusion might have played a larger role in the couple's disappearance than they had first thought. Still, the case felt unusual because absolutely no sign of Daniel or Marissa appeared. Even in remote areas, investigators often expected to find at least a dropped item, a footprint, or some indication of direction. The emptiness puzzled them. It was as if the couple had stepped into the desert and simply vanished. This quiet mystery made the search both more determined and more emotional. The families and investigators shared the same thought. People do not just disappear without leaving something behind. During one stage of the search, an officer found what looked like a small torn piece of fabric caught on a shrub. For a moment, hope rose quickly. But after careful checking, it turned out to be an old scrap from previous travelers, nothing linked to the newlyweds. Moments like this were difficult. They lifted spirits briefly, then let them fall. Yet each team member reminded themselves that the search mattered deeply and that giving up was not an option. Because the couple had last been seen at a gas station, investigators interviewed the clerk again, hoping he might remember something new. He repeated what he had already said. They were friendly, asked for directions to a scenic area, and did not seem worried or rushed. He wished he could offer more help. Other customers who had been there that day were also questioned, but no additional details surfaced. Months passed, and the case became one that people talked about quietly but often. It was the kind of mystery that stayed in the back of the mind, a story that felt gentle yet troubling because it remained unanswered. Some people believed the couple had simply lost their way. Others wondered whether their Jeep had taken a wrong turn onto a narrow road. A few imagined they might have tried to explore a place that seemed safe but proved confusing. All these ideas made sense, but none could be proven. Investigators also explored the possibility that the couple had intentionally left to start a new life, though no one who knew them believed this. Daniel and Marissa had strong family connections, stable plans for the future, and no reason to leave everything behind. They were excited about their careers, their home, and their future together. Leaving intentionally did not match their personalities or dreams. Still, investigators had to consider every possibility, even the unlikely ones. Years continued to pass. The desert weather changed the landscape again and again, erasing old footprints and covering old paths. New search technologies were introduced, and investigators sometimes revisited the area using better equipment. Aerial surveys became more detailed. Ground scans helped detect unusual shapes under sand or soil. Each time, people hoped for a breakthrough. Each time, the desert remained quiet. The families kept sharing memories of the couple. Daniel's father talked about his son's love for photography and how he always tried to take the perfect picture of sunsets. Marissa's sister remembered how Marissa would plan trips with careful notes and tiny doodles in the margins of her journal. Friends spoke about the couple's kindness and how they made others feel relaxed and valued. These stories kept the couple alive in the hearts of all who knew them. Investigators who had worked on the case in the early years sometimes returned after retirement to ask if anything new had surfaced. They often said the case felt like unfinished work, something that stayed with them because the couple had seemed so full of promise. The mystery also affected newer officers who heard about the disappearance during training. Many of them tried to imagine what they would have done differently, but the truth was that the desert made every answer feel just out of reach. The community around the area changed over time, with new residents and new developments, but the story of the missing newlyweds remained a part of local history. People told the story to visitors, not in a frightening way, but as a reminder of how vast and unpredictable nature can be. They spoke gently about the case, focusing on the couple's love and their adventurous spirit rather than the sadness of their disappearance. Even the places where they had likely traveled, the gas station, the small road leading toward the canyon, the scenic overlooks, became quiet symbols of the mystery. Travelers who learned the story sometimes paused longer than usual at these locations, imagining the couple standing in the same spots years before. It created a sense of connection between past and present, a reminder that stories do not simply disappear even when people do. The families held gatherings every year on the anniversary of the disappearance. These gatherings were not sad events, but peaceful moments meant to honor Daniel and Marissa's happiness. They shared stories, updated each other on their lives, and released small lanterns or balloons into the sky as a symbol of hope. They believed that one day something would be found, something small or large, that would give them the answers they deserved. Through the years, there were moments when someone believed they had found a clue, a piece of metal in the sand, a reflection seen from a hilltop, or a map marking a rarely traveled trail. Each lead was checked carefully, even when it seemed unlikely. This dedication came from both respect for the family and a shared belief that mysteries should not remain mysteries if there is a chance to uncover the truth. Still, even with all the effort, no meaningful evidence surfaced. The disappearance remained one of the most puzzling unsolved cases in the area. But rather than bringing frustration, the mystery brought compassion. People who learned about the couple often felt drawn to their story. They imagined the newlyweds traveling with excitement, unaware of the long-lasting questions that would follow. Because the couple's final days had seemed peaceful and ordinary, the mystery felt gentle, even though it carried deep sadness. The desert, with its calm silence and shifting landscape, seemed to hold the answers. But it stayed still, as if waiting for the right moment to reveal what it knew. And for 27 years, everyone, from family members to volunteers to investigators, waited with patience, wondering how and when the truth would come to light. Yet even as time passed, hope did not fade completely. The families believed that the desert, no matter how wide or deep, would someday reveal something. They trusted that the couple's story was not finished, and although they did not know when the answers would come, they believed firmly that they would come. The search might have slowed over the years, but love, memory, and determination never slowed. The couple remained alive in the hearts of many, not as a mystery, but as two people who shared joy, adventure, and genuine affection for each other. And so part 2 ended with the world still wondering, still listening, and still waiting for the day when the quiet desert would finally speak. 27 years had passed since Daniel and Marissa first disappeared, yet their story remained alive in the minds of many. It had become one of those mysteries that seemed frozen in time, held gently by the families, investigators, and community members who never truly stopped hoping for answers. Some people believed that the truth might never be known, that the desert might keep its silence forever. But time has a way of revealing what once seemed impossible, and in the summer of 2025, something remarkable happened that brought the entire case back into the light. That year, the desert experienced an unusual monsoon season, one stronger than anything seen in decades. Heavy rainfall fell across areas that were usually dry. Storm clouds gathered over the ridges, and water rushed down slopes that rarely saw more than a light drizzle. The rain changed the landscape in ways that even locals found surprising. Hills shifted slightly, loose soil washed away, and small rock slides formed in places where the ground had long remained untouched. It was as if the desert decided to move, stretch, and reshape itself all at once. During this time, a park ranger named Owen was assigned to inspect several remote areas affected by the monsoon. He had worked in the region for more than 15 years and knew every trail and overlook like the back of his hand. He enjoyed the peacefulness of the desert and often said he felt most alive when surrounded by its quiet beauty. On this particular day, he set out to check a narrow ravine that had reportedly experienced erosion during the storms. The path toward the ravine was calm and warm, and the sound of soft wind brushing against the rocks filled the air. Owen walked carefully, scanning the ground for signs of unstable soil or loose stones. When he reached the edge of the ravine, he noticed that part of the upper wall had collapsed. Large rocks were scattered across the slope, and a pile of soil had formed near the bottom. He was about to record this in his notes when something caught his eye, something metallic, glinting faintly in the sunlight. He stepped closer, leaning over slightly for a better view. At first, it looked like a random piece of debris washed down by the storm. But as he adjusted his angle, the shape became clearer. A curved piece of metal, coated in dust and corrosion, was sticking out of the ground. It didn't match the natural colors of the desert. It didn't look like old equipment or tools left behind by workers. It looked like part of a vehicle. Owen felt his heartbeat quicken. He radioed his team, explaining that he had found something unusual. Though he did not make any assumptions yet, something inside him whispered that this discovery might hold long-awaited answers. Within hours, a small group of experts arrived at the site. They examined the exposed metal carefully, brushing away sand and loose soil. Slowly, more of the structure came into view. A faded bit of paint, a cracked surface, and eventually a partial frame that unmistakably resembled the hood of an older Jeep model. An identification number was checked and double-checked, and it matched something investigators had memorized long ago, the vehicle belonging to Daniel and Marissa Hall. The news spread through the investigation team with a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. Many of the original officers who had worked on the case had retired, but several returned when they heard the update. They felt a deep emotional connection to the disappearance, and the possibility that answers might finally be uncovered made them want to be part of the next steps. An official excavation began the next morning. Specialists used tools designed to protect fragile objects from damage as they removed layers of soil. The work was slow and deliberate. Everyone present understood the importance of being extremely careful. Each movement revealed a little more of the Jeep. Eventually, they uncovered the entire top section of the vehicle, confirming that it had indeed come to rest more than 40 feet below the surface. As the excavation continued, the team noticed signs that the ground around the Jeep had shifted multiple times over the years. The monsoon had likely been the final push that unburied the top layer, allowing the sun to reflect off the metal and catch Owen's attention. Before that, the vehicle had been hidden entirely by soil and rock, protected from the outside world. Inside the Jeep, the team found personal items that clearly belonged to the couple. There was a weathered backpack, some camera equipment, and articles of clothing that had been preserved surprisingly well by the dry environment. Each item was handled with gentle care. The most touching discovery was Marissa's wedding band, still shining softly despite the years. Investigators placed it inside a protective case, understanding how meaningful it would be for the family. One of the most surprising discoveries came when a specialist opened the damaged camera case. Despite the metal being bent and scratched, the memory card inside had survived. It was carefully removed and taken to a lab for analysis. No one knew how much data, if any, could be recovered from a memory card that had been in the desert for nearly 3 decades. But the team remained hopeful. Even a single readable image could provide insight into the couple's final day. Back at the site, investigators examined the surrounding landscape. The Jeep had fallen into what appeared to be a hidden ravine, one that was not marked on older maps and rarely visited. Before the storms, the opening had been completely covered by soil, making it invisible to search teams years ago. This explained why helicopter scans from the early investigation had not detected it. The ground had looked solid, and the ravine's narrow shape had made it nearly impossible to identify. Experts also studied erosion patterns, trying to understand how the Jeep ended up in this precise position. They saw signs of gradual shifting, suggesting that the ground above the ravine had weakened long before the final collapse. This raised the possibility that the couple had driven unknowingly over a fragile patch of land, not realizing the hidden drop below. It was a theory that resonated with the investigators, though they still wanted confirmation. When word reached the families, emotions poured out in many forms. There was relief that the couple's location had finally been found. There was sadness knowing how long they had waited for answers. There was also gratitude toward everyone who had worked on the case, those who searched, those who hoped, and those who never forgot. The families traveled to the site under the guidance of officials, who made sure the visit was peaceful and respectful. Meanwhile, technicians worked tirelessly to recover the data from the memory card. The process was delicate, requiring advanced tools and gentle handling. Several images were damaged beyond recognition, but a few slowly came into focus. The first images showed the couple smiling during their trip, standing near large rock formations and enjoying the bright sky overhead. These pictures brought tears to the eyes of everyone involved. They were reminders of the couple's joy and youthful excitement before the mystery began. One particular image stood out from the rest. It was slightly blurry, but clear enough to show Daniel and Marissa on a narrow trail. Daniel stood closest to the edge, appearing to adjust his footing, while Marissa reached toward him, possibly telling him to be careful. The timestamp placed the image shortly before the couple had last been heard from. The background landscape matched the general area near the ravine where the Jeep had been found. Investigators compared the shapes of the rocks and determined that the couple had indeed been very close to that location on the day they disappeared. This discovery did not reveal every detail, but it provided a calm and understandable picture of what might have happened. It suggested that the couple had explored the trail, taken photos, and continued their drive, unaware of the weakened ground ahead. The final moments appeared peaceful, not chaotic. There was no sign of outside interference. Instead, nature had simply shifted in a way they could not have predicted. As the investigation continued, each recovered item and image brought a new layer of understanding. The truth that had been hidden for 27 years was slowly, gently coming into the light. The discovery of the Jeep did more than answer questions. It brought a sense of closure that had been missing for so long. Even though the mystery was not fully solved yet, the direction of the story became clearer, and the families finally felt that the world was moving toward the truth they had waited decades to hear. For the investigators, the discovery served as a reminder that no case is ever truly closed until every possibility has been explored. It also reminded them of the power of time, how one storm, one shift of land, or one moment of sunlight reflecting off metal could change everything. The desert, quiet for so many years, had finally shared something, and everyone involved knew that part 3 of this journey was only the beginning of a long-awaited understanding. After the Jeep was carefully lifted from the hidden ravine and the memory card was recovered, the investigation team returned to the lab with a quiet sense of hope. The story of Daniel and Marissa had lived in silence for 27 long years, and now, for the first time, the silence felt as though it might break. The team handled the memory card as if it were a fragile treasure, knowing that whatever was inside could help answer questions that had been asked for decades. The data recovery team was gentle and patient. They cleaned the edges of the card with tiny tools and placed it inside a special device that read old files very slowly. Many of the images were damaged from age, weather, and time. Some pictures showed only strange streaks or shadows, but a few began to take shape. The progress was slow, but every small success felt meaningful. When the first clear image appeared, the room grew quiet. It showed Daniel smiling, holding the camera out for a picture, with Marissa laughing beside him. The simple joy on their faces made everyone pause. It reminded them that this wasn't just a case. They were real people, deeply loved, full of dreams and plans that had never been fully lived. The emotional weight in the room grew stronger with each new image that appeared on the screen. As they carefully recovered more photos, a gentle story began to appear. The couple had taken pictures of their road trip, capturing beautiful rock formations, light shining across the desert, and peaceful landscapes. They had taken photos of each other in front of small gas stations, scenic turnouts, and narrow trails. The pictures showed two people enjoying life together, unaware that their journey was heading toward the unknown. Then one afternoon, a technician quietly called the lead investigator over. A new image had appeared, one that seemed different from the rest. It was time-stamped only minutes after the couple had last been confirmed to be safe. The image was slightly blurry, possibly due to movement, but still clear enough to understand. Daniel stood near the edge of a rocky trail, adjusting his stance. Marissa was reaching toward him, her hand lifted gently as if reminding him to be careful. Her expression looked calm, focused, caring. The wind appeared to be moving her hair slightly, and sunlight cast soft shadows across the scene. Experts studied the landscape behind them and quickly realized that it matched the area near the ravine where the Jeep was later found. The rocks, the slope, the distant shapes, all lined up with the location that the ranger had discovered. It didn't take long for them to understand that the couple had been on or near that very trail shortly before they disappeared. Seeing the photo felt like stepping into the couple's last known moments. It showed nothing dramatic or alarming, only a natural, everyday moment on a scenic path. This simplicity, in a way, made the picture even more meaningful. It showed that their final recorded time together had been peaceful. They were doing what they loved, exploring, enjoying each other's company, and taking photos of their adventure. Investigators gently pieced together what might have happened next. The area around that trail had been known for occasional erosion, even back in the late 90s, though not many people had traveled there regularly enough to notice. If the ground beneath the trail had weakened over time, it might have shifted without warning. The couple might have moved forward, unaware that the earth beneath them had become fragile. They might have returned to their Jeep afterward, planning to drive back to the main road, not knowing that nature had slowly changed the landscape. What stood out most in the recovered image was the way Marissa reached toward Daniel. Her gesture suggested care, attention, and awareness. It showed that even in their final moments captured by the camera, they were supporting each other, just as they always had throughout their relationship. This image touched everyone who saw it, including the families who were later shown a carefully printed version. Investigators continued studying other fragments of data on the card. Although many images were too damaged to read, a few contained colors, shapes, or partial outlines of the desert. None were as detailed or revealing as the main photo, but they helped confirm that the couple had been exploring natural viewpoints and hiking paths on the day they disappeared. From these small hints, the team created a timeline of their final hours, one that felt gentle and respectful, not frightening or harsh. The next step involved analyzing the Jeep itself. Teams studied the frame, the wheels, and the position of the vehicle inside the ravine. They found no signs of outside interference. Nothing suggested that another person had caused the couple's disappearance. Instead, everything pointed toward an accident shaped by nature, time, and a landscape that can change quietly. Specialists also confirmed that the ground above the ravine had likely been weakening for years. Even a careful driver could have crossed the area without knowing the danger below. Maps from the late 90s confirmed that the ravine had not been marked clearly. Even modern hikers with experience said they would not have recognized the hidden drop beneath the sand. This explained why the search teams in 1998 could not find the Jeep. The ground had appeared solid, and the vehicle had been completely covered by layers of soil. Even helicopters flying overhead would not have seen it. The desert had simply hidden it in a natural, silent way. When the families learned about the memory card and its images, they felt emotional but grateful. The photo did not show fear or confusion. Instead, it captured a moment full of care and calmness. For them, this was a comforting piece of the story. It allowed them to picture the couple together, enjoying their adventure, rather than imagining unclear or frightening possibilities. The image became something they held close to their hearts, a final reminder of the couple's love and gentle spirit. Experts explained to the families that the memory card's survival was almost like a small miracle. After 27 years, weather changes and shifting soil, the fact that any data remained was surprising. Yet it felt meaningful, almost as if the desert had kept the card safe until the right time arrived to uncover the truth. The investigators shared their findings publicly in a calm, respectful way. They explained that no outside danger or wrongdoing had been involved. Instead, nature had simply taken over in a quiet and unpredictable manner. The couple had likely tried to return to the main path after taking photos, not knowing the ground beneath them was fragile. The discovery of the Jeep and the memory card brought clarity, offering a peaceful explanation rather than a troubling one. The image recovered from the camera became a symbol for the story, one that showed love, connection, and normal life moments in the middle of a vast desert. People across the community felt touched by it. Many said that the picture reminded them of the beauty in small moments, the importance of companionship, and the unpredictability of nature. Even the investigators who had worked on the case for many years felt a sense of quiet reflection. They remembered the early searches, the long hours in the sun, and the many theories that had come and gone. Now, with the discovery of the Jeep and the memory card, their efforts felt complete. They knew they had found something meaningful, something the families deserved after so many years of uncertainty. For the families, the answers they received did not erase the sadness of the couple's loss, but they brought comfort. The truth was gentle and understandable. It allowed them to imagine the couple spending their final hours together peacefully, surrounded by the desert they had admired. The recovered photo gave them a final memory, one they could cherish rather than fear. They expressed deep gratitude to the investigators, volunteers, and everyone who had kept the story alive. As time moved forward, the story of Daniel and Marissa's memory card became a reminder to many about hope, patience, and the quiet ways the world can reveal answers when the moment is right. What had once been a mystery heavy with confusion became a story marked by love, peace, and the slow unveiling of truth. Even the desert, silent for so long, seemed to have finally spoken. It had held the couple's last memories gently for many years, protecting them through storms, seasons, and shifting winds. And when the time was right, 27 years later, it allowed those memories to be found. In this way, the discovery of the memory card did more than reveal information. It brought closure. It brought understanding. It brought a final picture of calm and connection, showing that the couple's journey had been filled with love until the very end. And that picture, soft and simple, became the heart of the story, a heart that had waited decades to be seen. When the news of the discovery finally reached Daniel and Marissa's families, it felt as though 27 years of waiting had suddenly shifted into a moment of gentle understanding. For so long, the families had lived between hope and uncertainty, never knowing whether the desert would ever give them any answers. Now, with the Jeep found, the memory card recovered, and the investigators' calm explanation, a new kind of peace began to settle into their hearts. The families traveled to Arizona shortly after the official announcement. The authorities arranged a quiet, private visit to the area near the ravine. They wanted the families to see the place where answers had finally been uncovered, though they did so carefully, making sure the visit would bring comfort rather than sadness. The land was open and wide, filled with soft breezes and warm sunlight. Although the desert was large, it felt peaceful rather than lonely. When the families stepped out of their vehicles and looked across the landscape, they felt a mixture of deep emotions. It was comforting to know that the final location had been discovered, but it also brought a tender weight, reminding them of how long the journey had been. Still, as they breathed in the warm air and listened to the quiet around them, many of them felt something gentle, something that felt like closure. The investigators spoke softly, explaining how the Jeep had likely remained hidden beneath the earth for many years. They showed how the monsoon rains had caused the soil to shift, finally revealing the top of the vehicle. They described the way the memory card had survived, offering the last glimpse into the couple's day. The families listened carefully, appreciating the calm, respectful way the information was explained. Soon after, the families were invited to view the recovered items in a private room at the investigation center. There, placed neatly on a long table, were the belongings that had been found inside the Jeep. The backpack, the camera case, the pieces of clothing, and a few small items the couple had packed for their trip. Each item was treated with care, placed in protective cases, and handled only by professionals wearing gloves. Marissa's mother paused when she saw the wedding band. She lifted it gently in her hands, her eyes softening as she traced the small scratches along its edges. Though time had worn the ring slightly, it still shined with a warm glow. For her, the ring symbolized not loss, but love, the life her daughter had shared with Daniel, the joy they had felt together, and the bond that had held them close until the very end. Holding it felt almost like holding a memory she thought she had lost long ago. Daniel's father stood quietly by the camera equipment. He remembered how Daniel had loved photography even as a child, always capturing the sky, the trees, and anything else that caught his attention. The camera had been one of Daniel's favorite possessions, and seeing it again after nearly 3 decades filled him with a mix of sadness and gentle pride. He was grateful that the camera had held their final images, allowing the family to see a piece of the couple's last adventure. The families spent a long time in the room, speaking in soft voices, sharing memories, and supporting one another. Even though the moment felt emotional, it was also filled with warmth. They knew now what had happened, and although the truth brought tears, it also brought peace. For years, they had wondered whether the couple had been frightened or troubled. The recovered images showed instead a calm, ordinary day, a day of exploration, love, and togetherness. As the families prepared to leave the investigation center, an official gently asked whether they would like to hold a small remembrance gathering near the canyon. Many of them agreed that it would be meaningful. They wanted to honor the couple not by focusing on their disappearance, but by celebrating their lives, their love, and the answers that had finally arrived. The gathering took place the next morning. The sky was clear and the light was soft, casting warm tones across the desert. Chairs were arranged in a small circle, and family members sat quietly, breathing in the peaceful air. A light breeze brushed past them, almost as if the desert itself were offering a gentle welcome. One by one, family members stood and shared memories. They spoke about the couple's wedding day, the laughter, the music, the way Daniel looked at Marissa with admiration. They spoke about road trips they had taken together in the past, about the couple's favorite books, their inside jokes, and their shared dreams for a future home filled with happiness. Some family members cried softly as they spoke, but their tears were warm, not heavy. Others smiled through their emotions, remembering moments of joy and light. Everyone present understood that this gathering was not meant to be sad. It was meant to bring closure, comfort, and unity. A small table beside the group held a framed copy of the final image recovered from the memory card. The photograph showed Daniel adjusting his footing on the trail while Marissa reached gently toward him. The picture felt calm and peaceful, capturing a moment of care and connection. It reminded everyone that even in the couple's last recorded moment, they were together, supporting each other just as they always had. After the stories were shared, the families released small paper lanterns into the clear morning sky. The lanterns floated upward slowly, rising higher and higher until they were tiny white dots against the blue. Watching them drift felt symbolic, like letting go of years of unanswered questions, fear, confusion, and pain. It felt like making room for peace. Over the next few weeks, investigators finished their final report on the case. They explained that the couple's passing had been the result of natural circumstances, an accidental slip caused by hidden erosion beneath the sand. There were no signs of struggle, no signs of danger caused by anyone else, and no evidence of anything more than a natural shift in the landscape. The ground had been unstable in ways no one could have predicted. The families appreciated the gentle, clear explanation. They knew the desert could be unpredictable, and they were grateful that the truth they received was calm and understandable. The final report helped them close a chapter of uncertainty that had lasted far too long. As news of the solved case spread, people across the region reacted with a mixture of sadness and relief. Many had grown up hearing about the couple's disappearance, and the discovery brought them a sense of closure as well. The story became one of patience, love, and the quiet ways the world can reveal answers when the moment is right. Some people in the community began visiting the scenic trail where the final photo was taken. They walked gently along the path, pausing at certain spots to admire the landscape. Many said that being there made them feel closer to the couple's story. They often brought flowers to lay quietly on the ground, not as a sign of tragedy, but as a sign of respect. The area became a peaceful place where people reflected on life, nature, and the beauty of shared memories. Daniel and Marissa's families continued to honor them each year, but now their gatherings felt different. They were no longer based on uncertainty. Instead, they were filled with stories, photographs, and gentle smiles. The families spoke about the couple with a sense of joy, remembering their kindness, their humor, and the love they had brought into so many lives. The final image became a precious treasure, one that reminded everyone of the couple's connection. It was often framed in the family's homes, placed in a special corner where sunlight could reach it. Visitors who saw the picture often felt touched by its simplicity. It showed a moment of care, a moment of togetherness, a moment that captured the entire spirit of the couple's relationship. As more time passed, the mystery surrounding the couple's disappearance faded into a story about love, patience, and the natural world's quiet unpredictability. People learned from the story, not in a fearful way, but in a thoughtful one. It reminded them to cherish every moment, to respect nature's quiet power, and to keep hope alive even when answers seem far away. The investigators who had worked on the case felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Many of them had carried the story in their hearts for years. Finally, being able to provide clarity brought them comfort. They knew they had helped bring peace to the families after so long. The discovery also reminded them that sometimes time itself becomes part of the investigation. Time to shift landscapes, time to reveal what was hidden, and time to heal old wounds. In the end, the uncovering of Daniel and Marissa's final location did more than close a case. It connected people across generations, reminding them of the importance of love, hope, and gentle remembrance. The desert, once silent and mysterious, had given something back, not in harshness but in quiet honesty. The families carried the couple's memory forward, not with questions but with gratitude. They had been given a final glimpse, a final answer, and a final sense of peace. And in that peace, they found the strength to move forward, comforted by the knowledge that Daniel and Marissa had spent their last moments together, doing what they loved most, exploring the world, supporting one another, and sharing a gentle, beautiful bond. That bond, preserved in a single photograph and in countless memories, became the true ending of their story. A soft, tender reminder that even when life takes unexpected turns, love remains, timeless and unbroken.